was a contest that they did at some point where you could win if you put together a one-paragraph essay of what you would do with, I believe it was $500 or $1,000, that a quote-unquote scholarship. They were going to pick one out, and you get the money. And so I was new, I was naive, I didn't know anybody in the club, and I filled out all the paperwork, and lo and behold, I got a call that I had won the, I think it might have been even $1,000.
It was a grant.
Yeah, it was a grant.
Yeah, I don't think it was 1,000. Probably it was probably
$500. And so what I used it for was to go out and spend 3 or 4 days with Jimmy Clues. And it was the wildest adventure you've ever gone on because there was going to be 6 people in the class. I got there. I don't know if you've got, how many people, have you guys ever taken a class with Jimmy? Anybody?
Yeah.
You sit in front of his house at first when I got there, and I noticed no other cars are coming out, and nobody else is coming in, and I was like nervous about going up to the door. And he just walks out, and in his accent, "Mock, come on in." And I went in, and we're talking for a good 15, 20 minutes, and I said, "Where is everybody?" And he said, it was another class from, I think, Baltimore was coming out there. There was going to be 6 of them, and I was going to be the 7th. They all canceled a week and a half before, and it was just going to be one-on-one. And I got to spend one-on-one with him, and it was a class act, because he said, you know, I said, "Why didn't you just cancel the whole thing?" And he said, "Because you probably planned for it. You took time off of work, you did what you were supposed to do, you planned for it." If you've never met Jimmy or you've never had time to spend with him, he's phenomenal. He's my favorite instructor. He's a phenomenal person. He's just a great guy. We became friends. I actually ran his website for him for about, I don't know if anybody can do that. I ran his website for him for about 4 years when he was doing some of the members-only stuff and things like that that we were putting together. So I am not laying claim to anything that you see here tonight as my own. I'm telling you, I learned this, and if I can tell you who I learned it from when I did it. But if you ask me, that's the easiest way to do something, right? Watch the pro, go out there, and I don't even care if you duplicate the pro. Do it, learn the technique, and then you can go theme and variation, and you can learn something else and do something else with it. And that's kind of how I do it with pen turning and everything else that I do. I'll take something, I'll learn the way someone else did it so I can get that technique out, and then I'll adjust to it. The other thing, and I just want to bring this up because I had this as a note and a mental note that I want to talk about. When we're going to do something here tonight, we're going to talk about platter turning and we're going to talk about rims. There's a lot of chances that you could make a mistake. You could do something wrong, right? You could cut something wrong. You could finish something wrong. Here's one thing that I'll tell you personally is don't stop. Don't throw that away. Take that piece to the rest of the way, all the way through to the best of your ability. Why do I say that? Because maybe you mess up the bottom, right? And then you say, well, I'm going to dump this piece out, and I'm going to take a new piece in, and I'm going to start it, and I'm going to return the bottom. Well, I got the bottom perfect. Now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to learn how to do the top on it and the rim on there, and I messed that up, right? And then I go, oh, God, I wish I would have just cut the last one. So then what do? Because I'm naive. I take out a new piece of wood, I return the bottom, it's perfect, I get the top on there, and it's perfect, and then I want to put on some embellishment, and if the embellishment wasn't what I liked. So if there's one thing that I can tell you to do when you're doing something new is don't stop when you make the first thing that you're not happy with. Go through it, do every single thing on it. Finish the embellishment, finish the finish on it. Do something like that. So I am going to talk a little bit about some of the patterns and some of the techniques that you can do on some of the rims, and then we're actually going to turn a little piece, and we'll see how far we get with it. So one of the classes that, when I took it with Jimmy, this was the first piece that we ever turned, and it was the first thing I ever did there, and we simply just sculpted the rim on here. But what I'm going to focus in on tonight, and when we're going to do the turning and the math and everything, is this Roman Ogee. Right? Can you see it? Can you guys all see it in there? I don't know if I can, is it on the camera?
Yes.
There you go. Can you see the Roman Ogee? And so what it does, it starts here, the curve starts to go down, and then in theory, it'll reflect upon itself and go the other way. Right? And we're gonna do some, as I keep saying, we're gonna do some math. There's a real easy way to get this done. It's not nearly as hard as you think. And so this was the first thing that I ever did, simply colored the rim. On the inside, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you could do the inside of the bowl and the way that you could do the rim technique on it. This one, if you look at it, it goes out, it goes in, and then there's a little lip on here so that whatever you put in here is well contained in here. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way you could do it. So before I went out there, I had watched Jimmy's videos, and I'm embarrassed to show this one, but it's kind of one thing that you can show. I decided before I went out there, I should at least try to make a platter, right? So if you guys have ever seen Jimmy's technique on doing the coloring on here, this is a colored platter that I did, and it's got the lines in there from the maple. It's a blue trans tint on there. Then I dabbed some green on there, and then I dabbed a little bit of yellow on there, and then I sprayed it with alcohol, and that's what gets all the blend on here. If you look at this thing closely, you can see a ton of mistakes, right? This edge is so sharp, you could cut your finger on it when you did it. But it was the first one I ever did, right? I'm not embarrassed by it, but the edge is way too sharp. And if you look at it, you can see I tried to turn something to hold it, and then I went, well, my chuck isn't that big, so I'll turn something else and get it to hold in there the other way. Once again, I don't care. I did date it, 2012. So 13 years ago, this is where I was at when I was doing platters. So then, after that, I took a class here, right? Or I took a class with Nick Agar, right? And phenomenal, right? Phenomenal demonstrator. And this was one of the things that he did, and we learned how to do this one. So this one's a simple, same thing. We got a little like Roman Ogee that we have on here. And then what we did was we rough turned the face on here, spray painted it white, then used a web paint that you spray on here, and I shot it with the web paint on here. And then, once you get it all done, that's when you do the finished turning on here. So once you have it here, to get these really nice, clear, sharp edges, that's what we're gonna do to get the sharp edge. We're gonna then turn it on here, and we're gonna cut all the other wood that we had on here. So it looks like you're inquisitive, Bill. What we did was I just roughed it in, and then went back over it, and then turned it all off, and that's how you get this little pattern on here. Make sense? No, he used to have a show on Channel 11. Tim Yoder. And this is a bummer, man. This is one of my bummer pieces on here. Is I wanted to learn what he was doing, and he was doing this technique where he was using iridescent paints. And all you do is you turn the platter, and then you paint the whole thing black. And then what I used was a tool to cut in the edge here, and I cut in the edge here. And then I used blue painter's tape. We're going to talk about blue painter's tape a ton tonight. Paint, wrapped off the edge, wrapped off this, and then used those iridescent paints in a straw. And I just took the iridescent paint, globbed it on here, blew it. And the bummer is, I think this looked kind of cool, but I used a crummy piece of wood. Not that there's such a thing as a crummy piece of wood for all you wood turners. But I used a piece of wood that, I just thought, well, I'm just going to practice. God knows, this is the first time I'm ever going to do it. And so I'm not really happy with the piece of wood that I did it on. And you can see that it's been dropped numerous times. So the edges have got, that's the thing about taking things out to do demos and stuff. People will drop it and chip it and crack it. But once again, all you need to do is go on TV, go on, what's it, Pinterest? Pinterest is a good one. And I'm not by any means saying copy what someone else is doing. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying take a look at what's out there and then put theme and variation on and try to do something else that you want to do with the techniques that you're learning. This is a small little walnut bowl that I did. And once again, this is a first. And when Easy Wood wood turning tools came out with their beading cutter, I wanted to see how well the beading cutter worked on here. So I just took a small little piece of walnut, just turned it and tried the beading cutter on here. This looked really nice. It's a nice little piece. And then I took this one out a couple months ago just to see how, how if I can do something low. And it's just, once again, it's just a nice little piece of maple and finished off on here. Just want to let you know that and this is one thing no demonstrator ever does, right? I'm going to do something unique that you've never seen before out of a demonstrator. This was a beautiful piece of wood until I decided to make the bottom too deep. And I mean, this was looking great. And I got it to here, and I realized when I was making that swoop cut into here, it started to sound a little bit weird, and then it just went through. So I still, if you look at it, I still finished sanding the top on here and did what I thought I was going to do on here, just because I know that if I ever do something like this again, I might as well take a piece that I wrecked. So this sits in my shop all day long.
So why didn't you just make a plug for it?
I know, there are other ways. This way it's more impressive, and it just beats me in my head that I had something that I really, really liked, and I blew it. The other thing that I know people get hung up on is, if you notice the platters, not the bowls, but the platters, they were kind of thin, right? They were only a couple inches. Now, there's two ways of getting there, right? I've got a lot of skill, which is beyond what I don't have right now in terms of bowl and platter making. But I have a lot of skill, and I know that I could chuck that up, and I could take this blank, cut it in half, and I can make two things out of it. Or I can take hey, I'm still trying to learn on this, right? And I will just chuck this whole thing up. It doesn't matter once I turn that back on here, and I get that back done on here, how much of the front I'm going to cut off, right? So I can get that back on here, make sure that I have it, and then draw a little line here and say that that's where I'm going to turn. And then all that means is when I turn this thing around on the other side to cut off this face on here, I'm going to turn off a little bit more than I have to. What does that buy me, though? Buys me safety when I'm doing it for the first couple times, right? I'm going to be able to drive my worm drive into here a little bit deeper. I'm going to be able to have it chucked up on there a little bit deeper. So I'm going to have a little bit of safety in here. What else does it buy me? Anything else? What else can you think of? Practice. And not that I have ever done this, but I have heard that if you mess this part up on the back when you're doing it, you could just start from, start a 1/4 inch in again and make a new piece out of it, right? So I can do whatever I want on here, and if I didn't get it, maybe I didn't get the rim on there perfectly for where I want to hold it, well, then I just cut it off and I start it again. So it's just one thing that we're going to do, and that's why I would say if you're starting it out, go to something bigger. How many people here have never turned a platter or a bowl? Or anything, yeah, platter, bowls, anything like that. Okay, just at least a couple. So for those of you, what we'll talk about may be new. But now what does that mean? Is I've got a room of 50 other experts in here. And one of the things I'm serious about this. When I'm doing this, and I kind of suggested this when you do something like this, if you've got a better way to do something, tell us. This club is for everybody that's in the club. When the demonstrator comes up on here, it's not just my way or the highway, it's what I want to do, and I want to listen. And I want to learn things when I'm up here. The best thing for me to do when I'm a demonstrator is if I learn something from the audience, I incorporate it in. And so now I've got a room of 50 or 60 people here that can help me make the perfect platter. So if you've got a better idea when we're doing something, or you want to talk about something when we're going to do something, let me know. I promise you, just bring it up and we'll talk about it. All right? Do we got a deal from everybody? All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have to figure out how we're going to want to mount this. right up here on the chuck, right? And so that's what I try to do when I'm doing this one. I'm gonna do whatever I can to get that piece done. And then once I learn to do it, if it's something that I love doing, then the next time I do it, I'm gonna pick up another technique. And then the next time I do it after that, I'm gonna pick up yet another technique. And to the point where I could plow through this using all the standard methods that all the pros do. I just know at this point, I'm not at that level. And if I sat here and tried to pretend that I was at that level for doing something like this, it wouldn't be fun. And I wouldn't do it again. So it's the coolest thing for those of you guys, I know I'm going off on tangents on a lot of things, but if you ever come out and you do the learn to turn and stuff like that, the coolest thing about doing those is when you're teaching adult, and that's kind of what you feel when you guys watch some of these things, you keep going, well, what am I doing wrong? Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. When you teach a kid, you give them the tool and they say, get out of my way. And that's what I like doing. So this is what we're gonna do. It's got the worm drive already in here. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna take my drill, and this is an 8mm drill bit. And so I gotta figure out how deep I wanna drill the pilot hole into it, right? So if I took this over here, I noticed that I put a piece of tape on here, right about where that worm screw is hanging out. Can everybody notice that? The piece of tape on there? Well, what does that mean? That means when I drill this in to mount this on here, I'm only gonna mount it, I'm only gonna drill it down to the point where I've got that. And if you look at it on this blank, notice I got a ton of the blank left over, right? So that means, because I'm still new to this and I'm still practicing, I don't have to worry when I'm doing this. If I make that mistake on the bottom half of it, I can return it. I've got a whole bunch of area then that I can work on the top. I don't have to worry that this is going too deep. So I'm simply gonna, I know that everybody can go and use that, 3 points to find the center of a circle and all that other stuff. This is something I picked up from craft supplies a million years ago. And all I'm gonna do is put it on my blank. I'm gonna get this to line up with the 8-inch mark. And I colored a marker in there, and that's the hole that I gotta drill. Make sense so far? If I haven't lost you, that's we're doing pretty well. So now I'm just gonna take my drill. I would normally drill this pot most likely on a drill press, right? Gets it a little bit more centered. But for what we're gonna do here, we're gonna be fine. Drilled it down to the tape. So I like on this, you can use the worm drive without any of the jaws on here, but that would make this let me do this in front of the camera. You'd see how much deeper the worm would be into the piece, right? Does that make sense to you? So if I do it this way, and I let the jaws act as the face, I'm gonna be fine. And I already know I forgot to do something, but I'll show you how I can cover that in a second. So I'm gonna take this piece on here, I'm gonna thread it on. I know that it caught now. I'm slowly gonna roll it in. I know that you could turn the lathe on and you can have it spin on and you can lock it down. If you want to do that, more power to you. Lock it there. Do one last turn, and I'm on there pretty good, right? If you're new to this and you're ever nervous about doing something like this or you're doing any turning, there's the tailstock, right? And so you can see here as a pen maker, what do I have? Well, I've got this live center, right, that I can put in here, and I got Delrin bushing. So if I did want to do anything and I was nervous about anything, and I was nervous that, because I'm inexperienced and I don't want this flying off, well, I've now protected myself, right? And what did I do is because I put the Delrin bushings on here, I know that I'm not gonna mar that surface or dent it. So I can always use that as safety. I will tell you that, I'll tell you the joke that I normally tell when I do demos, is safety is really important. The first part of this is dead serious. I always wear a mask, even when I'm pen turning, I wear a mask. About 5 years ago, even though I had my glasses on and a mask on, I had a chip of acrylic go into my eye. It was the most painful hour that I had. So I will always wear the face shield. And normally I wear the N95 masks when I'm doing turning. I must have like 15 blanks that I have where I've done the bottom of them. And then when I get an idea for something that I want to put on a rim, now all I got to do is chuck this thing up and turn the rim and face it off and put whatever I want on the rim. So I've got a whole bunch of these. One day I just went in and decided I'm gonna be turning it. Well, I gotta figure out what this dimension is, right? And I blew it, right? Because I already put it on and it's open and it's jawed. Well, the beauty of this is I have a lot of extra sets of jaws. So I will just take another set of jaws that I have and I will use my dividers. You can use a caliper, you can use dividers, you can do whatever you want. And I'm just gonna go against my jaws. And that's the dimension of my jaws when they're in there. So if I just take this back, and I'm not even gonna worry about it, I'm just gonna rough it. Right there, make a little mark so I kind of have an idea. I know that the pros will do it with the machine on and just make sure that the edge never hits it and stuff like that. I'm not that good. The other thing that I like doing is I will make sure that I'm using a tool rest that's appropriate for the size piece that I'm doing. So if I have my traditional tool rest that's really long, the 12 or 13 inch, it may not let me get into some of the things that I want to do and then I'm going to turn. So I've got the 6-inch ones also. But so if I take this here and I just take a black marker, I got the spot where I really want that edge to start. And that's going to be the inside. That's going to be the rim. Right, sorry, the jaws that I'm going to catch that with. Make sense? Yeah, I'm gonna turn it on. I'm gonna make a little mortise on here. Now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to figure out where that foot goes. So let's just say that's. Oh, I probably, you know what? I did miss a step. I probably would have faced this first. So I'm not gonna. I'll just tell you I missed a step. You guys all have to deal with the fact that I missed a step. Okay, is that fair enough?
Yes.
I would have faced it. So now I got to go in and I want to. Put the little mortise in there so when I reverse it around and the little foot on there, that I have something to catch, right? When I have it, this is my foot that I want to put on there. Make sense? I know there's a million ways of doing it. I know that you can use traditional tools. I know. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a thick parting tool and I'm just going to poke it in. Is this like going?
Up top.
One of the things completely, if you do a lot of turning and you do a lot of variable turning, right? You make a pen, you make a bowl, you make a platter, you do a lot of variable stuff on here. One of the things that I've always done is I never turn my lathe off. My lathe is on all the time. I don't turn the button on and off because I don't want to have done a pen at 3,500 RPM, then chuck up a bowl, not remember that I turned it off and left it at that speed and then turn it on again. So I will just slow it down to 0 and bring it back up every single time. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I will do it. I'm going to square this off a little bit. Because you can see that there's a pretty good wobble in it. And not because I am, but if you were nervous and you're just starting out and you want to feel a little bit more comfortable, you can always do what I just did, right? I can bring that tail stock up. One of the things that you want to make sure you understand when you're doing any of this stuff is, I think if you're new to turning, your tendency is to look where the tool is cutting. You want to look at the opposite side. You want to look what profile you're creating. And so we're almost round on here.
What tool are you using, Mark?
I'm just using the Easy Wood CI3 round tool. It's my favorite. Pretty smooth. All right, so I got it. Pretty clean cuts all the way through. All right, so now I'm going to take my wide parting tool. So one of the things you want to think about when you're making this cut here and you're doing this foot is dimensions and proportions, right? So one thing that you should know is whatever this dimension on the outside of the foot is, right? So this is the outside. The inside should be double that. So if this is a 16th or an 1/8, then if it's a 16th, the inside should be an 1/8. Why? Because when I expand the jaws in here, I want to expand the jaws into an area that actually has some wood behind it.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the depth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So when I expand the jaws, I don't want the jaws to just be on just this little part. So whatever I go in, or whatever I think this outside piece is going to be, the inside's twice as deep. And now I know that I could go in there with a gouge or whatever and cut my way back and get it all perfectly flat. I'm not going to do that now just because I'm trying to get to a lot of stuff tonight and I want to just talk you through. Right? So I can finish this face off. One thing though that you need to do is the jaws on here. If you take a look at the jaws on here, these are dovetailed, right? Does everybody know what dovetailed jaws mean when we're talking about it? So the jaw is not flat. The jaw's got a little bit of an angle, right? And so if I was to just put this in there when I wanted to do it, when I wanted to reverse it, I would only be touching on just this little bit of a lip. Kind of dangerous, right? So what I want to do is I want to create that dovetail in the bottom on this piece, right? So what I'll do is I'll take my diamond point tool and if you notice I put it in at an angle, Now I know that I've got a dovetail back into it. My little cut into it. I'm gonna do a lot of piece stuff here to just get it done, and then if we have time at the end, I'll actually finish this all the way out. But I gave myself a little bit of a back cut into it using my tool so that I know that when I want to do that when I want to catch it, it's easier for me to do that. So now I'm just gonna go in, and whatever depth that I cut this side to, here, I'm going to double it on this side. What? Oh, sorry, half it. Yeah, half it. Sorry, thank you. There you go. So now I'm just going to take this up. And I would normally, you can use anything you want. A lot of times I'll just use the little tool that's here. Take my thumb here. Oh, sorry, that's the inside. That's where I just turned it there. And I can get a better idea where I'm at. Go ahead, is there a question, Marie?
No, I'm just trying to fix camera.
Okay. So now I want to go across. I want to face this thing off, and I want to meet it up to where I just put that. Now you can see when we were doing it, you could tell just when I was doing it how much easier it became to turn, right? The turning was a little bit cleaner and we didn't see as much of a wobble in it. Do you want me to, I'll take out that little piece just so you can, so it looks better on camera.
Now I can see it.
So now I've got a blank. If I'm looking at it from the top down, right? I got a blank that looks like this. This is where the chuck is gonna, actually it's this. And the chuck is sitting in here holding it when I flip it over on the other side, right? But that's what I've set up, is this, right? Now I'm gonna make that Roman Ogee. And I know the professionals in here can do it freehand. I can't. I don't have that skill. So here's where the math comes in. I'm gonna pick out whatever depth I want this piece to be. So let's say that I'm gonna determine that I want my bowl to be here. That's gonna be the depth of my bowl. And so right now the worm drive is sitting in here. The worm drive is sitting in there. And I'm going to say the depth of my bowl, I want it to be right here. So that's the depth of my bowl. Make sense? Or sorry, my platter. Make sense? There's going to be a little bit of a lip here that we're going to give it afterwards. But that's really where I want my platter to work, right? Well, to get that Roman Ogee, it reflects upon itself, right? So if I took this, can everybody here divide by 3? So if I took this and I went, well, right there's 2.5 inches, I would always go over to my Alexa and say, Alexa, what's 2.5 divided by 3? And she would tell me. But roughly, you're going to go and go, well, you know what? A third would be here, a third, and a third. So right about here is a third. Do we agree that that's about a third of the dimension from here, from the edge here to the all out here is about a third. So if I took my fingers and I went there, 2, 3, I'm pretty close, right? So I'll take my marker and I'm just gonna go like that. What's that gonna get me? Is now, what? Is now, if I find that spot over here that's 1, 2, 3, right here, right? So that's what I've got marked out on my blind. Now all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make a cut that goes like this. Right? Looks kind of weird, right? Well, then what I'm gonna do is now I'm just gonna take this from here to here and divide by 2. And so that spot's gonna be here, roughly, right? All that leaves me then is all I gotta do is make this cut. See how easy the Roman Ogee was? There's not a lot of eyeballing it and taking a look at it and doing whatever I want. I simply take this up here, I make that cut wherever I want to make that cut, then draw a line at the halfway point and fade it back in, and I'm done. I can just to show you that you can, if you are ever nervous, you can't always do that just to make it a little bit safer for yourself. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that, I'm going to blend it in. If you see it from the front, can you see how it's starting to make that nice little sleek curve? So, because of safety, I'm going to take my tool rest. That's why I like the smaller tool rest that I have there, and I'm just going to adjust it. Making a bowl or making a platter, if you don't ever adjust your tool rest, you're not doing something right. You're cutting away a lot of wood, so you always want to be adjusting that tool rest. And I've already adjusted. I'm not going to go all the way up to the line. I think that looks pretty good as is. Pretty easy first cut, right? Now, and I didn't bring any. There's nothing in the rule book of turning that says you can't sand that if you want. Sorry, Mary. I'll stand up here. There's nothing that says you can't sand that if you want to try it and see what it looks like. So I could actually take sandpaper and I could sand it out and get that little blend in there a little bit more. It's not going to buy me anything for what we're doing at this point. But if you want to get a skill down and you want to practice it, now's the time to practice it, right? So now all I got to do is take this, figure out where that halfway point is. So let's say that I determined that the halfway point is right about about here. Oops. So I determined that that's about the halfway point, right? That's the distance between, I can't do that with this marker, from the leg here, the foot, to here, that's about halfway. And I just drew a line on that one, right? That's the inflection point. So now all I gotta do is do that little piece and do that inflection back into it. Are you guys having fun?
Yeah.
Listening to a pen turner do a bowl or a platter? You know what you are really listening to? It's even worse. You thought it was bad that you were gonna have to listen to a pen maker make a platter. You're listening to an engineer do it. I got a degree in engineering, so that's way worse. And yes, I've done tons of math. All right, so I'm gonna adjust my tool rest so I can get a little closer. And now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up the cut kind of close to this line, and I'm gonna reverse it, right? So I got this one, now I gotta make that one. And I'm just gonna try to get it down into here. So you can see there's not a lot of turning I gotta do here. And I could see it. I can see I could make it a little bit cleaner up in here or make it a little bit more decorative right up in here. So I'm gonna just do that. Can you guys see the throw an Ogee in there? What do you think? Pretty close? Reasonable? And then we were just gonna talk about, I'm just gonna talk you through what I would do in the rest of this to flip it over. All we've done now is taken the bowl and applied some math. There was no complicated math. It was 3. Either divide by 3, put a line in there, get it to inflect, get that reverse reflection into it, reverse reflection on that reflection point. You'd sand it. When you're sanding something like this, and I didn't bring sandpaper, the biggest thing that you'll notice when you're sanding something on here is tear out, and you're gonna get it on the end grain when it's going around, right? Because you're getting side grain, end grain, side grain, end grain. So on the top and the bottom of the piece, depending on where I have it, that's when you'll get a little tear out. And I tried to do something this morning to show you that. So I took this piece of walnut that I did this morning, and
Just stay right where you are so that you can't.
oh, there we go. So it's just a piece of walnut that I did for prep today. And I didn't even do any sanding on it or anything really. This is just how I turned it. But if you look, when you sprayed it with lacquer, you can see right up in here and right up in here where it's a little bit lighter, right? That's where I would have spent more time sanding it and making sure that I had it sanded out. Now, I could have done that and finished it off and never remembered to tell you that. But I wanted to do that and show you how I do this. What I do to get the bottom of my bowls and my platters sanded out is I will do an electric sander. I start out with a DeWalt sander where I just use a round sander and let it go and do that one. And then I've got a sanding one of the air sanders in my air compressor that has the little two-inch sanding head on it that spins around in a circle, and that's all I do to get that on there and get that done. So all I would do now is simply take the piece, once I had it done to that level, kind of like that, flip it over, chuck it up. Anybody want to guess what the dimensions are in here? This is about, that's about a half. And so if you're doing something that's decorative, anywhere between a half to a third is a real nice decorative piece. If I'm doing something that's more functional, I'm gonna put a little bit, I don't have one here. But if I'm doing something that's functional, I can adjust this rim on here to do anything that I want. Now, on the rims, I'm just gonna talk about stuff, right? I'm not gonna turn it. So you can see here, let's do this one. I kind of mentioned this earlier. What did I do? I wanted to get something to draw your eye into the middle, right? So I painted the whole thing black, and then I cut the two ridges in here to draw your eye into what I want you to be looking at. And once again, under theme and variation, right? Well, it's kind of what I did on this one, right? When Nick was teaching us on here, right? So the theme is the color on here. Sorry, what I did was painted this one right, spray painted it with the splatter paint, but you can still see there's an accent ring in the inside here and wood on the outside to draw your eye into it. To me, those two are much more pleasurable and easier to look at than something like this. And we already critiqued this bowl, right? I'm not worried about it. But you can see here, if I wanted to do that, your eye just looks at the whole thing. It doesn't see a rim sitting up in here. And then on this one, I simply used put a little chamfer on it, and I used a black marker and just colored it in with the black marker. So, I don't know how much more I was gonna kind of go over. I wanted to be done around 8:30. You can either pass them around. They've been dropped a couple times. So this is the first time I used the beading cutter on the Easy wood turning tools on a piece of walnut. So everybody here, in all honesty, this was something that I will tell you flat out, I'm uncomfortable doing, right? I'm not a big platter guy. But to encourage people to do this for next year, and I know Nathan's gonna have this as a challenge, I took a little time, I practiced it, and I came up and I did it. You guys, no one's gonna tell me to my face how bad it was, which is fine. You'll save that for when you go out for the after party, for when we're done with Mark being the president of the club. I'm sure that there's a big after party tonight. But it got me out of my comfort zone, and I came up here and did it. So now I'm looking for, now you guys get to critique me. Critique me on the comments, on the platters, on my technique. I tried to solve this as how a math guy would solve it, by just using that. I know the pros in here could find those little Roman Ogees. I couldn't. Yes, sir.
Mark, you're going to talk about putting blue tape and masking off.
Oh, so what I do, yeah, I can talk about that one real quick. If you want to do something like that, can I borrow that piece 1 second real quick? Yeah. I hate when Jimi Hendrix types in. To get this blue tape in here, it's not nearly as hard as you think. So let me show you one quick thing. So the tool that I use to cut is this tool. So if there we go. If I point it in, so I cut this, and then I cut this. I covered it up with blue painter's tape, even in the ridge here. And then I just used a zip knife, and I put the zip knife in there. I turned it by hand to get the zip knife to cut it all off. I left the tape on that side. I left the tape on this side, did all the work in here, And then, oh, there was only one thing, I didn't do it right the first time, but don't ever take it off the chuck. I did something else and then I put it back on and left it. So if you leave it on the chuck, you're fine. And then what I did was I took the whole chuck off, put it on my table like this. I splotched ink on there, then I used a straw to blow it all around. And just, did little different colors of the blue and the green and the violet, blew it all around. Then put it back on the lathe, took the tape off, and delicately used the cutter just to cut that back out just a little bit. So if I had any of the inks go into the channel, I was able to cut it out that way. So I covered the whole top up with tape, used a knife to cut out the little part that I want to pull off, pulled it out, then actually literally took I forgot the name of the company. Yes, Josiah. That's exactly it. Michael's has it, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if Hobby Lobby has it. I know Michael's has that stuff. Put it on there. It's white. When you first put it on, it's completely white. And then what I did was I just took a straw and blew through the straw. And I know when I saw it on TV, they were using an airbrush, and he was blowing it around with an airbrush. If you got an airbrush, that's great. If you don't have an airbrush, just take a little straw and go, and you can see where I blew the colors around. Let it dry. Oh, you do have to let the colors dry independently. So once you put the blue on, let it dry. Then put the green on, let it dry. So you're doing all these different little patchy corners of it, letting it dry in between. And then once I had it done and I knew that I was done with it, I simply just pulled the rest of the tape off it, put it back on the lathe, just took my little tool in there to clear up the gutters. Yes, sir.
What's your trick on getting a flat bottom?
The part that I didn't do when I was doing it up here.
Yeah.
The part that I didn't do.
No, not there, on the inside.
Oh, on the inside, I will tell you this. I know this is gonna kill all you professionals on there. This tool is so much easier to control for doing something like that, right? If I have to use if I'm using a bowl gouge or something like that, and I want to get it, I got to worry about that tail that's coming around, and I got to worry about where the grind is on all that other stuff, and you know that when you're doing it, you're gonna go, if I'm gonna do it with a traditional tool, I'm gonna take the tool out here, I'm gonna catch it there, and then I'm gonna dip it and go around. I use this. I know it's cheating to a lot of you guys, but I simply put it in like, rotate it like this, and then walk it all the way down. That's all there is to it. And then I will take a little bit more time because I'm not as good as some of the people in here. I will take a little bit more time using my sander if I have to sand something off. But this tool makes doing the inside of a platter so much easier than remember, as I said, I took the class originally with Jimmy Clues. There's no way in heck that Jimmy Clues is going to be using one of these tools. I'm sure, I don't want to point him out, I'm pretty sure Dick, you wouldn't use one of these tools for doing a platter either, right? You use the traditional tools. Yep. But because I want to get that love of the game in here, I don't care how I do it. It's not dangerous, it's a lot of fun, and it makes me want to do it again.
Well, I'm with you, Mark. I just pick up whatever tool is easiest for the job at hand. It doesn't matter to me.
I'm not weird. So the weird part about it is, if I do it, and those have been dropped on the floor and a whole bunch of other things, but if I do a platter, and I actually do it to where it's completely finished on there, you can't tell what tool I use to cut that. And if you actually feel, the insides of most of mine are pretty smooth, because it's so easy to do it with these tools. Any more questions? Comments? Concerns? Yes, sir.
You were turning pretty fast when you were using the round tool to form the base, form the Ogee. About 2,000, 3,000.
I would actually be going faster if it was at my house and I didn't feel weird about it because I was here in front of people. I tried to slow it down a little bit. At my house, I will go as fast. I will probably go 2,500 to 3,000 to do it. Remember, the faster you can go that's safe, less resistance in the wood. So if I was to take, you can do it on any piece of wood. Take a piece of wood, go in at 300 RPM, and you'll hear tut, 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 tut. Crank it up. So yeah, it's all personal preference to where you're safe and you feel comfortable. When I'm pen turning, thing never comes off 3250.
Yeah, but that's a very small diameter.
I understand. So on these things, for me, I'm relying on the fact that I know that it's chucked up in there. I know that easy wood chuck and that worm drive is in there. I knew when I was screwing it on, I had enough resistance in it. It's a feel thing, right? When I put it on, I could still feel that it was tugging against me. So I know that I didn't have a lot of slap in there. And if I do get nervous on it, I just take that little piece on there and I put it on the back. So,
You ever use the negative rate cutters?
so all the time. So the negative rate cutter,
For wood.
yep. So this is the negative rate cutter, and let's go to the camera here. You know, I'm just gonna talk about it right in front. This is the traditional carbide tool on this side. The cutter head is completely flat on here, so it's completely flat. This is the negative rate cutter. I can pass these around as long as you guys know you're not gonna poke each other's eyes out with them. If you look at the cutter head on here, the last 1/16 of an inch, it's got a little bit of a chamfer down on it. It's called, the negative rate cutter. I will tell you this, on the time that I use this, the negative rate cutter, is anytime that I'm doing half wood, half acrylic. So if I'm doing a bowl or a platter, I've done platters like that, where then I've cut the insert into it and I poured resin in it, and I let the resin cure. And to get like the Nick Agar piece that's up there, I did that with resin once too. I just poured resin in there. And then now I'm doing a little bit on the edges of it. So and the other thing that this works great on is really, really hard woods. So if it's a really, really hard wood or very dense wood, the negative rate cutter, I'll still cut 90% of it with this just because of the time aspect of it. And the last 10% I'll cut with this. Here's the wildest thing that I've ever seen people talk about, like, oh my God. When people talk about these tools, I've actually seen someone, and I don't know if it was on, I think it was on YouTube or it was a symposium I went to, where a gentleman was up there and he said, well, you don't need to buy the negative rate cutter. You just take the tool and put it in this way. John was actually in a demo with me once where I got up and I walked to the back of the room, right? And the guy said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm scared the way you're turning. And he goes, come on, it's not that bad. And I said, I've got 911 buffered in my phone right now. I just haven't hit the call on it. But negative rate is not just taking this and turning it this way. That's simply having halfway flipped it. Come up later, please. And we can do that one. Yes, sir.
Can you sharpen the negative rate cutter with the diamond card?
You can. So that's the controversial thing. You really can't sharpen it anyhow. I know people will say that, yeah, you can take it on a diamond hone and do it with your finger. You're not really sharpening it. You're just going to get another hour or two out of it. And so I will tell you this. The cutter heads range anywhere between $18. So I don't want to be the Easy Wood spokesman, but I do demo for Easy Wood all the time. So if you have questions on those tools, let me know. But all you're going to get out of it, if you hone it down, you're going to get another hour out of it, maybe an hour and a half out of it. I would rather not do that, and I take the cutter heads. I don't throw them in the garbage. I keep 2 or 3 of them. Why do I keep 2 or 3 of them? So as a pen maker, anybody ever here as a pen maker turn something like deer antler? I don't want to wreck my new cutter on deer antler. Deer antler is just going to wreck your cutter. And so what I'll do is I will take, I've got a whole bunch of handles. I will take and I will put a cutter that's right on that marginal edge that it's not cut really well anymore. And I will put back on that cutter that's been old, and I'll round down something like deer antler or something like that on it. The cutter heads in general, you get about 20 to 40 hours on the cutter head before you turn it. And I will do one last Easy Wood thing while I'm here. If you noticed on one of the cutters, there's a piece of tape on there. and there's little nick marks on there, that tells me how many times I've rotated that cutter. So the one that's out there, I've rotated it 3 times, because when you look at the cutter head, you can't tell what's the sharp part and not sharp part. I am very, very, very specific on how I rotate this. So if I'm turning anything like spindle turning, I'm gonna beat the edge up here. So that's the part that's going in and it's getting really beaten up. Then when I wanna make the finish cut, I'll take the handle and I'll turn it 45 degrees to make that finish cut along it. So this is the part that's got beaten up. This is the part that's got slightly used. So when I want to rotate the cutter head, I rotate it counterclockwise. So now the part that's slightly used is going to get beaten up, and the fresh edge is going to be the edge that I'm going to get on there. The other thing I'll tell you about Easy Wood tools, and it's also tough, I don't want to do a commercial about it. The other thing about an Easy Wood tool is, if you've ever had a problem with the screw gumming up, every single time that I use this tool, when I go to bed at night, isn't that cute? When I'm done at the end of the night, I've got fingernail polish remover that I've stolen from my wife, and I will just take the tool, I'll dip it in fingernail polish remover, pull it out, it's literally sitting next to my leg. That keeps that screw really, really clean. And if you're looking even to get a really, really clean cut on something shallow like this, a great investment is this cutter with a really, really small head. I know you think you can't do much work. I tell you, this thing can do a lot of work. This thing is great. This is for doing bowls and platters and stuff like that, this is one of my favorite cutters.